Our story starts with a strange family living on the outskirts of the kingdom of Dillground. Lloyd Bland was the spouse and 3 other women were also involved. Ibles was the first of them. In reality, she was the most terrifying dragon queen. The second girl was Alice, the family's eldest daughter and the Demon King's daughter whom Lloyd had killed. Lastly, the Witch of Calamity, a gifted sorceress, was Sophia, the second daughter. That was the family that a god had falsely created. We are going to learn the history of this fantastic family today. Everything starts when Lloyd triumphs over the Demon King in their epic fight, leaving him covered in blood and receiving honors for being a formidable and skillful fighter. He defeated his entire army of thousands of beings with just one hand. He asserts that the protagonist possessed power that was not found in humankind, that was almost on par with, if not greater than, that of the gods. According to the Demon King, Lloyd would have nowhere to go after defeating him and would eventually lose all sense of purpose in life, at which point people would start to fear him, seeing him as a major problem for the world. The Demon King as a result demands that Lloyd be killed as a great and valiant warrior, if Lloyd was prepared for that. Without a second thought, the main character gets ready to kill the legendary Demon King. He claims that Lloyd's chosen path will be dressed with his own death, and that was more than enough to suffice. The protagonist bids the Demon King Duke farewell in response to his remarks, and the Duke, in turn, bids the valiant Lloyd farewell, ultimately losing his life at his hands. 2 girls, one of them the princess and daughter of the Demon King who had personally witnessed Lloyd take her father's life, were watching that death. The princess's guardian stepped forward to warn her against getting too close in case the warrior discovered them. She was the last hope for her people and the only one left, especially since the Demon King and his army had been driven out. To live another day, she had to maintain her strength. The princess gave Lloyd the peace of mind that one day she would track him down and exact revenge on him as he watched him get away on the battlefield after killing the Demon King Duke. So half a year later in the kingdom and in the Dillground Palace, the people of the palace start congratulating the protagonist for being the great and brave warrior who saved the country. They praise him as wonderful, commenting on how even though he came from poverty, he was still able to become someone great and talented. The girls in the palace talk to each other about whether or not he has a partner and how they themselves would like to be his new wife. Lloyd stands before the king and greets him. The king congratulates him on defeating the Demon King, asking him to raise his head. He asks if his battle against the Demon King turned out to be a great success. Lloyd agrees with his words, saying that it was an honor to be able to receive his praise for doing his duty. After a long time with the king's support and thanks to the kindness and rewards received, Lloyd was able to recover completely. After the fight, the king says that it was only the minimum they could offer as a reward to the hero who saved the country. He then comments that the reason he called the brave hero to the palace that day was because he wanted to give the protagonist a part of his territory, which leaves him confused. The king says that in his own name, he would grant the brave Lloyd the title of Earl of the Border, and everyone in the palace applauds the birth of a new Earl. In the midst of the dark atmosphere, Lloyd reveals another level to the story that is developing. He tells of being met with a mansion, an amazing gesture tempered by dark news from east of Rhoda. A recent development that has upset the region's gain is the abundance of terrifying monsters living in the once thriving iron mines. Eager to take back command, the monarch sent a superior army to neutralize the terrifying danger. Sadly, none of the armed men returned, so the mission was a complete failure. Now that his losses are mounting, the king looks to the protagonist for the strategic thinking needed to solve the puzzle and get rid of the frightening creatures. This realization gives the story a fresh perspective by fusing smaller stories with more significant issues that require the protagonist's involvement. It's going to be an exciting and dangerous journey, especially with the possibility of facing formidable enemies east of Rhoda. Lloyd agrees to the task he has been given, and as soon as he leaves the palace, the king's decision makes the people around him worry, especially as the territory given to Lloyd was on the borderlands, where crops rarely grew, and if he found out that it was just a lifeless place, he could complain. But the king said that would not happen because Lloyd did not want anything, and as long as he was alive, he himself would be satisfied. However, it was precisely in those lands that the great Dragon King was living, who was said to be immortal and had the ability to destroy an entire country in just one night. Even if the Demon King himself was incapable of facing the Dragon Queen, being the true supremacist among the dragon race, and the king was aware that even Lloyd was probably far from a match. This left the king's advisor shocked because he was trying to put his own hero to death, and the king agreed because he wanted his hero now dead more than ever. He says that from the beginning, he only intended to let his great hero and the Demon King kill each other. But Lloyd was too powerful, and that world did not need that kind of power. The king's plan to eliminate and murder the soldier who had the power to save the world but also the power to destroy it if he wanted to had come to an end. But the king still would not give up on ending the great hero's life, especially since that warrior, the great hero Lloyd, was no longer of any use to them. So a month later in the suburbs of Rhodia, Lloyd was traveling in a carriage. He himself realized that he had probably been quietly expelled from his own country. He eventually realized that there were barely any plants in that territory, and wondered if that was really where the great monster was living and would probably appear in the future. But as expected, the king of the kingdom was afraid of him and ended up sending him to that empty and lifeless territory, which was not surprising because even if he were the king, he would end up taking a similar action. This makes him realize that this was just the result of his past choices, and he remembers a day when he was applying to take part in the body modification experiment to become a great and strong soldier. Lloyd's parents died early, and no matter where he went, he was always treated like a problem child. When he realized that the world no longer needed him, his desire to search for something in that world disappeared. But he still volunteered that day to become an experiment just because he wanted to become needed by someone. In the end, the scientists succeeded in carrying out their experiments on Lloyd, and from that day on, he would become not only a great exterminator but a true warrior for his country. The scientists did not care too much about what he would become now that it was just a big experiment that turned out to be successful. Even after ruling out several flaws, the king was finally happy with what they had created using Lloyd's body. After that, he was later able to defeat the Demon King and thus also lost his reason for existing. He had been given too much power and was now discarded as an unnecessary existence, which made him wonder if there was any reason for him to continue living. While he was reflecting on this in the carriage, a voice suddenly called out to him about how there was no grass to feed horses in that region, and also that they were traveling along a path that was difficult to travel. If they went any further, it would be problematic. Lloyd realizes that the owner of the carriage was afraid of the monsters and decides to get off, thanking him for the ride because he was still able to get quite far thanks to him. Soon he ends up walking away from the man in the carriage who starts to drive off. On the way, he hears a great noise, and when he looks back, he realizes that the hero has disappeared from where he was. That is because Lloyd had continued his journey and was moving at a frighteningly fast speed. Meanwhile, on Mount Rodbyre inside the tunnel, the protagonist had brought some light equipment from the city so that he could explore the place and face the monsters without too much trouble. Even so, he was curious to know what kind of monster lived there, especially in a place as big as that to begin with. As Lloyd entered the mines, a huge dragon appeared, asking him what he wanted by infiltrating the place that was actually his territory. Introducing himself as the Great Dragon King and threatening him with getting involved in picking a fight with him in that outrageous way, Lloyd thinks to himself that the Dragon King was really huge and wonders how that huge creature ended up in a place like that. Meanwhile, the Dragon King insists on receiving the answers to his questions and asks if by any chance that human was too scared to say anything. Lloyd says that he forgot what the word fear meant a long time ago, so he tells the Great Dragon King that the mountain did not belong to him because it was actually in King Deligran's territory, and now Lloyd himself had the right to it. The dragon is a little surprised that the human hadn't feared his presence and says that if he loved his own life, he should just run away immediately. But Lloyd refuses and says that those were orders from the king of that country himself. The dragon laughs and comments that he was really interesting, so he would give him a present. He launches an attack on the protagonist's head without any hesitation. But nothing happens to him in the end, leaving the Dragon King surprised that his fire attacks had no effect and wondering how that could be possible. Lloyd says that as he could see, what he was using now was the protective energy barrier, which makes the Dragon King even more impressed. The protagonist apologizes because he was a rather special being, and his own body was broken from the start. The Dragon King keeps insisting on ways to beat the protagonist, deciding to use his own body to end his opponent's life, even though his fire powers had no effect. But Lloyd just stops the attack without any hesitation. The Dragon King only gets more and more surprised by what he is seeing and asks if he really was a human to be that strong, which prompts Lloyd to reply that he was no longer a human like he used to be. In any case, Lloyd insists that they leave that pointless conversation aside because even his sword was no longer needed, and he simply lunges at the Dragon King with his fists. At this, the protagonist attacks his opponent with several non-stop punches, sending the dragon flying away and crashing into the wall of the Great Iron Mine. After being beaten like that, the dragon begins to tremble with fear and shock at what is happening, which makes Lloyd think that he has lost count of how many times he has seen those same eyes of fear and shock in his direction. The protagonist asks if the dragon intended to leave that place once and for all, and if he left peacefully, there would be no need to look for him again. The Dragon King states that he would never surrender to humans and demands that he kill him, but Lloyd just continues and asks why the Dragon King is not fighting him seriously. After all, attacks with fire and using his own tail were ones he could avoid and deflect without any problem, especially just by getting out of that iron mine. This makes the protagonist realize that the dragon did not actually want to kill him, but to put it more bluntly, it was more like the Dragon King was just scaring people away from his territory, but not killing them. The Dragon King hesitates and replies that the protagonist was delirious and insists that Lloyd take his life once and for all. But instead, Lloyd turns around and says that the king had ordered him to just kill the monster so that there would be no more losses. Considering that the dragon had not caused any damage or loss to the kingdom, that order could no longer be carried out and was without any reason. The Dragon King cries out without understanding why he did not just kill it once and for all, especially since he was aware that for humans, dragons' bodies were equivalent to a great deal of treasure. He asks if that was not what he himself should also want at all costs, like the other humans. Lloyd agrees because with the dragon's body, he could indeed get enough money to buy a country. But he did not care about those things. After all, he had killed enough, and that is why he did not want to cause any more unnecessary deaths with his blood-drenched hands. The Dragon King becomes interested and asks what had happened to him to make him think like that. Lloyd tells him that he was a warrior, and on the king's orders he had faced and defeated the Demon King's army single-handedly. He was now considered a threat to all of humanity. He himself was aware that the order to kill the Dragon King was just another way of the king trying to get him to kill another powerful being so that they could get rid of him. The Dragon King asks why he had accepted that order if he had been aware of it all along, and the protagonist replies that it was because he had nothing, not even love or a family. All he had was that power. Lloyd knew that if it was not the weapon they needed, then there was no reason for him to continue living, and that was something he hated deeply. Lloyd decided to leave the iron mine and said that the dragon could stay there if it wanted to. He said goodbye, stating that he couldn't care less what the Dragon King did with his life from then on. But then suddenly, a great light comes from behind him, and a dragon's voice tells him to wait. When the protagonist turns around to see what has happened, he realizes that a girl has appeared, claiming to have a suggestion. She introduces herself as Iblis, and Lloyd is surprised to see that the dragon has turned into a girl. Iblis asks for the protagonist's name, and when she finds out that his name is Lloyd, she asks him to live with her from then on. After hearing that strange request, MC just stares at Iblis and leaves her confused with that look until she comments that it was probably because he was enchanted by her beauty, and knew that males could never resist her attractive looks. But Lloyd denies it and says that he was just thinking that he understood how such a huge dragon ended up inside the iron mine and how she was able to change shape. His doubts now cleared up, Iblis is shocked and asks if he did not feel anything for her or any spark of attraction or a burst of emotion like men normally felt, which makes the protagonist lie, saying that maybe he did. But she realizes immediately that he was feeling literally nothing for her. Iblis can't believe that all her beauty was not being appreciated and realizes that not even that could move the heart of that brave warrior. But leaving that aside, Lloyd asks her what she meant about living together. Iblis comments on the protagonist's words, mentioning that he did not have a family, and she ends up being embarrassed to say it directly again, which makes Lloyd give up asking and just walk away. But she holds him back and says that she wanted to become his partner. The protagonist accepts without even thinking twice, leaving her surprised because he was such a simple person. She insists that she wanted to become his partner for real, and if he did not even understand what that meant, Lloyd confirms that they had become husband and wife. Iblis insists that according to the ancient legends of dragons, those who had the grace to help them needed to receive the fidelity of the dragon they helped or even become that dragon's partner. Lloyd does not mind too much and says it is fine, telling her that there was a mansion nearby, and it would be fine if they lived there from then on. But Iblis asks him to wait a while because before the protagonist makes his decision, she at least wants to be able to tell him about her life story and her old tales. She says that a long time ago, dragons used to live in that land, and one day she came across a human who had fainted, and she decided to help him in a moment of kindness. The person she helped recovered afterward, and he became unafraid of dragons and thanked her for her help. What's more, he offered that they could become great friends, so she ended up going to visit the country of the human who welcomed them, and temporarily peace and friendship was established between the two races. They lived looking after each other's countries, protecting the human caravans, and so the country started to become more and more prosperous and peaceful, and the days went by quickly. Then one day, as usual, the humans gave the dragons the minerals they loved so much, and as usual, the dragons ate those minerals. Eventually, the dragon's consciousness disappeared, and when it opened its eyes again, its entire species had been killed. After the humans achieved peace and prosperity, they no longer needed the dragon's protection and decided to poison them, to kill each and every one of them. So the land they used to live on, all their flesh and blood, became the property of the humans. But those were troubled and difficult memories that she did not quite remember. As she recalled to her senses, everything around her had gone up in flames after she had gone mad with rage. Of those times, she only wondered whether the plan to kill all the dragons was something that ordinary people had been aware of from the start or not. Perhaps in the end, the children who had been involved in that slaughter hadn't even been aware or guilty of what they had been involved in from the start. And so the fire consumed and burned the entire forest. Now those lands were just the one they were standing on, vague and lifeless. Since then, she has come to be known as the cruel Dragon King. Her great crime was to allow her people to die, which also involved those who were not directly related to her. To punish herself, she secluded herself inside to live a solitary life of redemption. An enormous amount of time passed, and since then, throughout all that time, Iblis had always wondered what fate had in store for her. She hoped that someone would be born with enough power to kill her, and yet, Lloyd himself chose to spare her life. She confessed that she was also tired of punishing herself in isolation. So she wanted to ask the brave warrior Lloyd, who had killed and frightened many people living like her in solitude, if they could at least live together. Now that he had decided not to kill her once again, Lloyd just agrees without even thinking twice about her question, leaving Iblis in shock because he was always such a simple person. She asks him if he has thought seriously after hearing her story, which makes the protagonist mention that for whatever reason, fulfilling the wishes made to him was his only reason for living. If it was what Iblis needed, he would strive with his own life to fulfill her will. Lloyd ends up calling her his wife, which makes Iblis cry with emotion and call him her husband too. But leaving the emotional part aside, in a matter of seconds, the protagonist comments on how Iblis changed her personality so quickly from when she was a dragon to her human form now. She replies that she was only pretending to try to scare him away. Considering that she had been isolated and alone for so long, it was expected that she would be a bit antisocial and would not know how to interact properly with people. Lloyd decides to accept her answer and tells them to leave. But before he tells her where to, he simply holds Iblis on his lap and runs out of the iron mines with her at a frightening speed. She asks where he is going, but soon, Lloyd tells her that they're arriving at their new home, which surprises her because it is a huge place. The protagonist said that they should choose a room to stay in and started calling her Iblis as his new nickname. But Iblis complained that Lloyd always had an expressionless face and asked if he couldn't express a little more affection from time to time. But in any case, she was content for the time being because now they would be husband and wife, and he would need to make her smile a lot more from now on. Later, in the bedroom of Lloyd's mansion, he stopped to rest, thinking that it had been a long day. He couldn't believe that he was now having a family and wondered if that was his new reason for living. Thinking more about the term family, he remembered someone he hadn't been able to protect in the past, who was like a loved one to him. He wondered if he really deserved something like that now. Suddenly, Iblis appears in Lloyd's room, suggesting that they sleep together that night. Of course, the protagonist agrees without even thinking twice. Iblis lies, is embarrassed, and asks him to be very gentle with her. So the scene cuts to the next morning. While Lloyd is washing his face, he notices that Iblis is in a bad mood and asks her why she was making so much noise early on, which makes her start shouting at him because Lloyd was such an idiot that even after that was their first night together when they were sleeping in the same bed. He just went to sleep immediately after lying down and did not do anything with her, which makes her question his masculinity. The protagonist replies that he couldn't imagine that they were able to sleep together and couldn't complain about it because the bed was not tight enough for both of them to lie down together, which only makes Iblis even angrier because he was thinking all the wrong things. She tells him that she was not complaining about the bed but about himself. Iblis says she'd done all the dressing up, But in the end, Lloyd did not do anything, which makes the protagonist apologize and ask her what exactly she wanted him to do and asks her to tell him directly. Iblis gets embarrassed and starts talking indirectly about what a husband and wife normally did together, which was mating. Lloyd keeps thinking about the term she used and makes Iblis embarrassed again, making her ask him if he did not happen to know what it was. But he replies that he did, but comments that it was something that only happened when a couple loved each other. This makes him ask if Iblis loved him, which makes her feel ashamed, and she deflects the subject by saying that it was something only humans thought about because she did not know there had to be love involved for it to happen. Lloyd says that if it was still what she wanted, it was his role as her husband to fulfill her wishes and comments that they could make right away, which leaves Iblis shocked and ashamed again, so she flies off. She says that since her partner decided to become loyal to the dragons, she would become loyal to the humans about mating, and they did not need to do anything until they fell in love with each other. Since Iblis was the one who suggested it, Lloyd just goes along with it, and she decides to go out and prepare some food, knowing that it was something that wives should normally do. That conversation makes the protagonist think that being a husband was even more difficult than facing the Demon King because there were several steps and obstacles to overcome. Later, Iblis returns to the house with something in her arms, leaving Lloyd at a loss to understand what exactly she had brought. She explains that it was her favorite mineral and also a chicken that was in the area and suggests that they could eat it that day. The protagonist eats the mineral and says that he couldn't sustain himself on it, which surprises her because she did not know that humans did not eat minerals. So Iblis suggests that he eat the chicken's fresh meat, which makes Lloyd comment that it was undercooked. She decides to leave the food in a better state for her husband to eat and roast the meat with her fire powers until it is black as coal, and she celebrates because now he should be able to eat perfectly and without any problems. Lloyd says it tasted good now, and Iblis decides to eat it too, only for her to complain that it tasted terrible. But the protagonist insists that it tasted good because she had made it for him herself, and that was enough to make it delicious, even though he was not able to eat the minerals she ate. Iblis is embarrassed and wonders if Lloyd was a bit of a delicate person and worries if she could just let a person like him eat what she has made that tastes so awful. She realizes that as a wife, her pride would not allow her to let Lloyd keep eating something bad until she could truly satisfy her husband with her cooking. Iblis then asks what was missing to make it tastier, and he replies that it was salt, which makes her realize that she had left out the spices. After discovering that he could get spices like that in town 2 days' drive away, she asks him to wait for her for a few minutes because she was going out to get some salt. Lloyd tells her that she needs money to buy things and asks if she even has that, which makes her hesitate. He continues to ask if she has any experience buying things before, which again makes her nervous. Finally, she asks her husband to accompany her shopping. Lloyd agrees because there was also something he needed to do in town, and now that he had prepared, they could go. But she quickly stops him from going into town because she was carrying such a sword around her waist. The protagonist insists that they could be attacked by thieves on the way, and they'd better be careful. Iblis replies that if they had to, just his normal monster power would be enough, which makes her sigh, wondering how he could be so silly. Iblis comments that besides, there would not be any thieves along the way, especially since they traveled to the city while she was in her dragon form. So the couple decides to head into town to do some shopping. Eventually, the two arrive in Ian's town, which prompts the port to say that they should get off somewhere where the townspeople can't see them, like near the forest. After getting off and arriving in the city, Iblis is impressed by how the human world has developed and ends up going straight to the first butcher's shop she sees and starts eating the meat that was on sale. This causes the salesman to go into shock and ask for the money for the product that was on sale. Lloyd apologizes to the owner and pays for the meat she ate, saying that his wife was a bit strange, which leaves Iblis shaken because she couldn't believe that someone like Lloyd called her strange when he was much stranger than she was. The protagonist explains that humans had rules when it came to buying things, and for that, she needed to pay first. This makes her apologize because she had never bought anything before, but Lloyd just decides to put that incident aside and says that they should buy what they needed, do the work he needed to do in town, and go home. Iblis draws his attention to going for a walk in the city, and the two end up in a clothes store, which she is delighted to see because her husband was always a very sensitive person. She decides to drag him along to do some shopping. Iblis starts looking at the clothes in the store, and a saleswoman appears in a matter of seconds to attend to them. But Iblis ignores her and just decides to pick out some clothes that were pretty and asks Lloyd what he thought would look good on her. But as he just agreed with everything she was saying, Iblis gets annoyed and asks if he was really paying attention because he was reacting in the same way to everything she showed him. The protagonist insists that he was being sincere, which makes Iblis decide to try on one of the garments, which makes the saleswoman want to show her even more clothes. But Iblis refuses, saying that she did not need to. Lloyd is surprised that she would not want to buy the clothes, and she explains that her clothes were made of energy, and she did not need to buy them. She could just memorize what they looked like and recreate each one on her body. This makes Lloyd comment that the Dragon Queen, the head of the dragon race, was surprisingly miserly, which makes Iblis complain that she was only economical. He just agrees without much hesitation. The couple decides to continue walking around the city on a sort of date until they finish shopping in town. Then they both stop at a nearby restaurant to eat, which makes Iblis anxious because she wants to be able to learn more about human cuisine. When she tried a plate of roast chicken, she was impressed by how tasty it was. A meat that was well roasted with lots of well-placed spices, and realized that Lloyd praised the food too, even though he always kept the same expression when he ate anything. Iblis thinks that would be a bit difficult to replicate and wonders how she could learn to cook so perfectly. She hears a couple next door feeding each other, which makes her excited, and she decides to replicate the same with Lloyd, wanting to feed him with his own fork. But the protagonist does not understand anything and replies that he was just fine eating on his own and did not need any help, leaving her shaken and Lloyd not understanding why she was acting strangely the whole time they were in town together. Iblis starts to think that maybe she was just setting high expectations and maybe Lloyd was actually bored of being around her because after all, they were only a couple in name and there was no affection between them. Lloyd asks if she is alright and Iblis agrees because she just got a bit tired. Until suddenly, in the middle of the conversation, a customer starts shouting at the restaurant staff, complaining that they're serving cheap wine and taking it as an insult. The customer became so angry that he punched the employee and held the employee's wife, throwing the bottle of wine at the employee's head without caring. The customer says that he would forgive the employee if he gave him all the money and his own wife, and of course he refuses, which makes the customer want to hit the employee with the gun that was in his hands. But soon, Lloyd appears to prevent a murder scene from happening. The customer is shocked and asks why he intervened, and the protagonist replies that it was simply because he heard someone calling for help, and obviously, he would come in response to save whoever was in need. The protagonist holds the client's gun so tightly that he starts to break it with his bare hands, leaving the man in shock. Then he orders his men to go after Lloyd, who was clearly a gang of thugs. When Iblis realizes that a fight is about to break out, she asks him to be careful not to accidentally destroy the restaurant. So when the thugs throw blades in his direction, he simply holds them up as if they were sheets of paper, stating that guns were forbidden because they would end up causing damage to the store. Lloyd needs the blades as if they were nothing, still saying that it was dangerous and they should leave it alone so that no one would get hurt. Soon, the bandits end up falling to the ground in shock because the protagonist was simply monstrous. The man who was still holding the waitress hostage tells him not to come any closer or he'll harm the hostage, but Lloyd does not care one bit and simply punches the guy in the face, sending him flying away and out of the restaurant, leaving all the other customers in shock at what they were seeing. At this, the protagonist confirms that he completed his mission perfectly and the restaurant was in perfect condition without being destroyed, which makes everyone around celebrate because he was super strong and cool with his skills. Iblis gasps because Lloyd was her husband, but soon some guards come running in, telling them that they've received a report that some soldiers have appeared there and ask if everyone is all right. The protagonist tells them what happened and hands over the men he defeated like sacks of potatoes to the soldiers, leaving them surprised because Lloyd defeated them all. The soldiers then ask for the protagonist's name so they can find out exactly what happened, and he reveals that it was Lloyd Blanc, leaving everyone in shock because they all knew the name of the one who defeated the Demon King. The soldiers practically worshiped the protagonist because they were fans of his and it was an honor to be in front of the great hero, but Lloyd does not care much and just tells them to give the mission accomplished report sheet to the king because he completed the task he received earlier involving the dragon. Just then, more and more people start showing up inside the restaurant just to see the great hero and celebrate, which makes Iblis say that they should leave, but the protagonist mentions that they couldn't leave because it was too crowded at the door for them to leave. The employees who were saved help the protagonists out of the back door, and Iblis thanks them by asking if they're okay. The employee agrees because he was used to dealing with that kind of thing, but still wanted to be able to thank them for their help earlier. Lloyd says that the next time they see thugs like that, they should not get too involved because he was clearly a weak person who would only end up getting hurt, which makes Iblis angry because the protagonist was a bit cold in his words. But the employee replies that he only ended up acting out of emotion when he was worried that something might happen to his beloved wife, and that worry hurt more than any wound. This ends up making the protagonist reflect on his words, but Iblis soon says that they should go back at once because they were wasting too much time there. But before they go, the employee's wife presents them with some food. At the end of the day, Iblis comments that a lot had happened that day, and yet it was the second day since they had become husband and wife. Thinking about it, she thinks about how that couple in the restaurant weren't just a couple in name and were actually a real couple with affection involved, which makes her a little jealous. Suddenly, Lloyd simply puts a snack in her mouth, and she does not understand why. Despite it being a tasty snack, it was very sudden, and the protagonist explains that he only did it intuitively because she had opened her mouth and said "ah" when she sighed. Iblis is surprised that he would do something like that just for the hell of it, and Lloyd tells her that he just ended up forgetting that it was something couples used to do. Even though they were only a couple in name, he still wanted to be able to act like a real couple. This makes Iblis laugh, thinking that she was being a fool to worry because it was not just her, but Lloyd himself was trying in his own way to act like a real couple. After the protagonist fed her again, she thanked him and said that the snack tasted good, causing Lloyd to show a more relaxed expression for the first time. Iblis said that now they could go home, and she could finally start practicing how to cook some things properly this time. She would be relying on Lloyd's opinion as to whether she was doing well or not, and so slowly the two of them begin to get closer to a real couple. Another morning, Lloyd tells his wife that he is going out to train, which surprises her because it seemed that the protagonist was trying to get even stronger, and she really couldn't understand his mind. Lloyd explains that it was just part of his routine and asks if she would like to accompany him, which makes Iblis very happy. She decides to prepare a packed lunch for them to eat at the training site. The protagonist tells her that getting there was also part of the training and simply starts running quickly, leaving Iblis in shock because it was totally different from what she had imagined. He was practically flying from running on his own legs. In the end, Iblis was not able to keep up with Lloyd's pace, but he knew that as she was the Dragon Queen, his wife would be fine despite everything. The protagonist was doing his typical training of sitting under the waterfall, and when a tree trunk falls on his head, he sends the trunk flying through the air and destroys the entire waterfall with just one kick, making him sigh because that was all he could do that day, finishing his physical training for the day. The protagonist is preparing to start his mana training when he comes across a forest cub fleeing from a large monster chasing it. But when the creature notices Lloyd's presence, it simply turns around and runs away, leaving him confused for a moment until he realizes that it was probably all because he was not containing his mana right now. For beasts with sensitive senses, Lloyd was now scarier than any ordinary predator. But even so, the cub that was left behind was growling at him, even though it was wounded, which surprised him for a moment as he wondered if that cub did not have the strength to escape again. Lloyd eventually lets the cub eat the meat he had brought to feed himself that day, and the cub becomes attached to the protagonist, which reminds him of a nostalgic feeling very similar to the one he felt for his younger brother in the past. Suddenly, a wolf appears and snarls at Lloyd, making him realize that the animal hasn't run away either. But he soon understands that the wolf was not actually running away out of fear because it was after his puppy, who ended up running away and tried to risk his life to protect his child. Observing this, Lloyd tells the wolf to be careful not to lose sight of the cub again so as not to end up like him and ends up being left alone in the forest. Lloyd realizes that the sun is setting and decides to return home to where his family was waiting for him. At home, Iblis complains about why Lloyd left her behind and took his eyes off her like that. She asks if he was not even afraid that she might get lost in the forest and why he did not wait for her, but the protagonist just continues with the same inexpressiveness and apologizes. As a way of venting her anger, she bites Lloyd, who comments that her bite hurt more than the wolf's, which makes her happy to have been complimented even though it was not entirely a compliment to begin with. Another day, the couple end up back in town again, and Lloyd tells them that it was all because it seemed that the king had received his report on the mission he had completed. In this case, the report of needing to eliminate the Dragon King. Iblis asks what exactly the protagonist wrote in the report. Meanwhile, the king was reading the report, totally shocked by what he had just seen. The king's advisor rushes in to find out what happened, and the king tells her that Lloyd married the Dragon King, leaving the two of them at a loss to understand how this could even have happened. The counselor begins to create a fanfic in her mind of how it sounded like something out of a fairy tale, but the king complains because yet another idiot was being born by his side, especially since they were talking about the most powerful hero and the most powerful dragon in their class now being together side by side. The king shouts that this marriage could only be a big lie and that they should only be working together in an attempt to do something against the kingdom and should therefore be eliminated. Suddenly, the king remembers that there was someone who could deal with those two, and then we're back to Lloyd talking to his wife. Iblis is surprised that the protagonist told the king about their marriage without even thinking twice. She is embarrassed that they should be seen as two weirdos in town now, especially since at first, the king was expecting them to be fighting with each other, not getting married. She knew it would only end up creating some unnecessary rumors when people found out about their marriage. Just then, a voice shouts for Lloyd from outside the mansion, about how a new order from the king has arrived. Just as Iblis was trembling from the start, the soldier outside tells them that Mark A. Lloyd Blanche has been given a new mission to put an end to an occult group called the Wand of Redemption. Iblis asks exactly what kind of people were in the Wand of Redemption group, and Lloyd tells her that they were a cooperative of fanatical and obsessive people who thought they were chosen by mana. All the members of that group could see and manipulate mana, and there were those among them who were known and acclaimed as great magicians of mana. They did not care what happened to people who couldn't use mana, and were united in the idea that they could use people who did not use mana as they please. Iblis laughs because they thought they were worthy of being mages, and were probably just a small group who thought they were powerful and were nothing next to them. But Lloyd tells her that from the report the soldier gave him, apparently, those mages had great power, especially the person who was called the Witch of Calamity, who had a mana power equal to that of the Queen of Dragons, which left Iblis in shock. Iblis complains because humans weren't even supposed to know much about her, and there was no way they could compare someone else's power level with hers. This makes her uncomfortable because it seemed like the king was just trying to send them on another mission where he would make them fight a being so powerful that it could cause Lloyd's death. Iblis advises her husband to just ignore that mission request, but he refuses, which makes Iblis look at him with pure disdain. Iblis says that Lloyd was the great hero who had finished his mission to defeat the great demon king and no longer needed to follow the king's commands or obligations. So there was no reason for him to continue working for someone who was especially trying to take his life and end him. Lloyd agreed, but unlike the mission involving Iblis, the group of cultists was causing harm to other people, and it was only right that he wanted to put an end to them in order to save innocent people in the process. That was exactly why Lloyd needed to respond to the cry for help from those who were waiting for someone like him. Seeing his determination, Iblis sighs because she knew it would happen eventually and says that she would go with him on his mission. And he couldn't complain. In parallel, the cultist group was reciting a prayer about how they were all equally precious, and the others were equally useless. Everything went in a big circle, and everything was for and by them. While they were praying, some members of the cult who were the parents and leaders of the cult called for their beloved daughter, Sophia, who was known as the Witch of Calamity. She stands before all the cultists, encouraging them to let mana guide them, and all the cultists continue with their prayers to the Great Witch of Calamity. At the same time, the protagonists were about to arrive at the designated location, and Lloyd asked Iblis to come down from the sky. Soon, they saw in the distance where the enemy's hideout was, and Iblis was impressed because it was a building that was floating in the air. But of course, the protagonist did not want to waste a second to invade the place and end his mission quickly. And Iblis agreed, saying that she would attack first because it was nothing for someone as strong as her, and she would break through that barrier quickly. But when Iblis tried to break through the barrier, she was shocked because the barrier was super resistant. Then, while they were still outside, they began to be attacked by magical weapons like projectiles that came from the sky. Lloyd explained that they were weapons created using a massive amount of mana to hit their opponents. Lloyd gets a boost with Iblis so that he can climb even higher and destroy the source of the mana projectiles, as well as the barrier that was preventing them from entering. The protagonist ends up realizing that more mana projectiles were heading his way, but Iblis quickly burns them up with her firepower when she returns to her human form. She was annoyed with Lloyd because he had simply used her as a jumping platform without warning and ended up leaving her dizzy with the force of his jump. The protagonist just guides her into the building, and in parallel, the cultists realize that something was wrong outside and discover that there were intruders trying to break in. When they discover that the mana artillery has been completely neutralized, the cultists shout to inform the founder of the cult and the Witch of Calamity about what was going on. But when they all mention the name of the person who was supposedly more powerful than Iblis, she immediately goes into a rage at the thought that someone could be known by such a title. The occultists use their mana to summon a golem and send it towards the protagonist couple. But instead of Lloyd himself going into battle, Iblis takes her anger out on the golem and destroys it immediately with one blow, leaving the occultists shocked at what they were seeing. The protagonist ends up praising his wife after the attack she launched, but the occultists don't give up and continue to send several other soldiers at them, which only makes Iblis even more focused on wanting to finish them all off once and for all, so that they never underestimate them again. Iblis starts hitting each of the golems with her bare hands, leaving Lloyd at a loss to understand what exactly happened to make her so nervous. But he decides not to ask too many questions and just leaves his wife to face the creatures. He decides to go deeper into the hideout, remembering how the occultists had mentioned they were about to inform the founder about the invasion earlier, and starts to follow the path they had escaped, but soon ends up having to dodge an attack that passed directly in front of his face. The occultist who threw the projectile, the swordsman Tauma, comments that he knew he must be the famous intruder who was causing so much noise and would now be his opponent in the clash. Lloyd realizes that Tauma must be the founder's bodyguard and asks if a swordsman should really just throw his sword like that in an attack without thinking. But Tauma mocks the protagonist's innocence because he was able to control his sword from a distance and uses it to pierce his opponent's body from behind to kill Lloyd. Tauma tells the protagonist to remember the way he was feeling now because the name of his sword was Thousand, being the magic sword that would take Lloyd's life that day. Lloyd realizes that this was a magical weapon that could be controlled through the use of mana, and Tauma comments that the fact that he had broken into the hideout so deeply was because he must be a skilled mana user too. He then asks Lloyd why he used mana, and still opposed the group of occultists who were mana users just like him. Tauma mentions how those who were blessed with mana were superior, and those who did not have it were inferior. But that was an even simpler truth than the teachings of that cult. Tauma removes the mask that was on his face, and Lloyd notices that the man had a mark that was mana poison. Tauma replies that that was a rather pitiful way of describing what he was going through. That was a mark that sometimes appeared on those who were blessed, and Tauma called it the sacred mark. He openly began to deify the power of mana, which was the great root that filled the whole world and the most supreme form of energy in existence. With the use of mana, all kinds of things were possible, such as the transformation, destruction, healing, and improvement of human beings. Even so, the sacred mark on Tauma's face given by mana was treated as something ugly in the eyes of some people, especially those who did not have mana in their bodies and who were, in fact, a bunch of trash. The occult group known as the Wand of Redemption always received that discrimination from the nation that they were actually a group of horrible, untalented people, and in no way were they inferior because the real inferiors would always be those without mana. Tauma says that those who used mana had every right to seek revenge and hold those who harmed them accountable and reign over each and every one of them. He tells Lloyd that as a mana user, he should therefore join the occultists, or else he would end up meeting his end in that very place. The deluded occultist is only shocked when the protagonist asks him if he has finished making his speech because he did not care what kind of ideology they had and had nothing to do with it. Tauma says that Lloyd has chosen death with this, so he uses his sword to attack the protagonist, which makes Lloyd sigh because that was such a waste of time, and he simply walks past the swords as if nothing was happening. Tauma is shocked that he has simply accepted his own death without fighting it in the slightest, but eventually he is even more surprised that none of the weapons managed to get through the protagonist's body. Lloyd tells Tauma that instead of dodging all the swords one by one, it was much quicker just to run towards him and heal himself, which leaves Tauma even more shocked because the protagonist had instant healing with an absurd amount of mana. Lloyd revealed that, to be precise, he could manipulate and use an infinite amount of mana, stating that the mark on Tauma's face was not sacred but simply a symptom of mana poisoning because he was using much more mana than his own body could handle. In other words, there was nothing that could stand up to the protagonist, but before Tauma could even say how magnificent it was, he was punched and flew away through the wall into where the founders of the cult and the Witch of Calamity were standing, leaving them shocked that their bodyguard had been defeated so quickly. Lloyd arrives at the scene, asking about the founders and the Witch of Calamity, and immediately notices the presence of a child at the back. Sophia introduces herself to the protagonist as the Witch of Calamity he has been looking for, and he becomes curious because apparently, that child was the person who was supposed to have a power equivalent to that of the Dragon King and could probably be the most powerful mage today. Sophia asks who he is, and in response, Lloyd introduces himself as the hero, leaving the founders in shock because the very hero who defeated the Demon King has appeared in there, and instead of feeling afraid like her parents, Sophia greets him politely. Lloyd says that he received a mandate from the King of Dil because the Wand of Redemption cult was being blamed for various crimes such as terrorism and kidnappings. So he was sent there to put an end to them, so he told them to surrender or he would have to take their lives, which left Sophia confused because she did not understand any of his words. But her parents, who were the founders, realized that even if they were against the great hero, they could still survive if they kept the Witch of Calamity by their side. Sophia's mother says that Lloyd was a bad person, which makes Sophia ask the protagonist to stop acting like that, and he refuses because it was the king's orders, leaving her worried. The founder tells Sophia to save them because clearly the protagonist was an enemy who needed to be defeated. Despite being against the idea, she decides to use her powers with mana to attack Lloyd while her parents run away. Lloyd realizes that due to the massive amount of mana used in her attacks, the nickname Witch of Calamity was not a title for nothing. Sophia was surprised that the protagonist was not trying to evade her attack like everyone else usually did, and Lloyd says again that he couldn't just walk away. Sophia then mixed in an even greater amount of magic to hit the protagonist and intimidate him, asking him what he thought of it all. But Lloyd once again refused to leave because he needed to finish his work, which made Sophia hesitate. Her parents insist that she hit her opponent immediately with that mana attack or they'd end up being captured and separated. At which point they ask her if she really wants to see her parents separated from her, and of course she refuses. Sophia decides to use her enormous amount of power to throw it in the protagonist's direction. But instead of running away, Lloyd simply uses his own mana to disperse Sophia's magic and absorb it for himself, leaving the founders totally shocked by what they were witnessing. Lloyd again tells them to surrender immediately, but the founders think it is absurd that they need to surrender when they would obviously only end up being killed if they did. The protagonist agrees that they would probably receive the death penalty after destroying several cities, kidnapping, and killing people. Lloyd goes on to say that they needed to pay for the sins they had committed, which leaves Sophia worried and confused because she never knew that her parents had done it. After all, they only told her that they were punishing bad people. The founders shout at Sophia to kill the protagonist, leaving her in a state of shock. But they insist by mentally manipulating her and trying to make her believe that they would end up dying just like her real parents if she did not kill Lloyd immediately. This makes Sophia remember how it was the founders themselves who killed her parents and kidnapped her in the past when she was still a child. She screams because she did not want to be alone anymore, and seeing her parents die again was the worst thing that could happen. So she disperses her power with a huge amount of mana. Iblis arrives just as that huge amount of mana is being dispersed and is shocked to see the Witch of Calamity trying to use all her power to kill Lloyd. Seeing that great power being directed at them, Iblis asks what they should do and who that girl was and is surprised to discover that she is actually the famous Witch of Calamity. Lloyd realizes that Sophia was hurting herself due to the mana poisoning, destroying her own body by using that huge amount of mana that she also had a limit to control, and he knew that she would end up dying at that rate. Iblis transforms into her dragon form so that she can launch herself towards that huge amount of mana, leaving the protagonist confused as to what his wife intended to do. After all, not even she would come out of an attack like that completely unscathed, but Iblis replies that if they did not find a way to supply Sophia's mana, she would end up dying. Lloyd comments that even if Iblis saved her, she would end up receiving the death penalty or becoming an object of experiments like him. And there was no reason for them to save her life now, but Iblis shouts that he was an idiot because after all, there should be no reason for them to hesitate in saving a child. And if there was no way to save Sophia's life, they should just create a way. Despite seeing Sophia destroying herself, the founders shout at her to keep getting more and more mana so they can kill the dragon and the hero so they can protect themselves, which drives Iblis crazy with rage at what those humans were doing to manipulate the girl. Sophia does as her parents tell her, and mana begins to destroy the hideout, hitting Iblis in the process. When Sophia decides to throw all that power in the protagonist's direction once again, he just suppresses and disperses all of Sophia's mana, absorbing it for himself and not getting a single scratch on his body. Afterwards, the founders are shocked because Lloyd was a real monster, and with that, Sophia ends up losing consciousness after using so much power at once. But before she falls to the ground, Iblis runs to be able to hold her, being surprised to see that the child was full of serious bruises. But the protagonist assures her that Sophia was safe. This is all because Iblis made an effort to suppress Sophia's magic, and so she did not receive enough lethal damage to take her life, which leaves Iblis relieved. Lloyd then turns to the founders with the angriest expression in the universe and asks if they still have any cards up their sleeves to try to kill him. But the two decide to appeal to pity and start asking for forgiveness because they were just pitiful people and were marked with the poisoning and had little time left to live. But soon, the protagonist rips off their faces, the marks that were lies, and realizes that all that time they had been deceiving even their own occult followers. And on top of that, they had tried to hide their daughter's crimes and used her. Sophia wakes up to hear the discussion, at which point the founders shout at her to get up and kill them right now. This makes Iblis angry because they were trying to make her daughter obey them, even though she was in a near-death state. If she used her mana power again, Iblis begs Sophia to stop because she would really end up dying if she used any more attacks. Before she could use her mana, the protagonist holds Sophia's hand and realizes that this girl was just like him, a disposable weapon. Remembering Iblis's words about finding a way to save Sophia's life, Lloyd says that from then on, Sophia would be his and Iblis's new daughter, leaving everyone confused by his sudden decision. Lloyd adds that the founders should not disagree if they don't want to die, and they immediately agree to the protagonist taking Sophia with them without even hesitating to ask for mercy for the girl. The founders say that they could take Sophia as long as they left them alone, revealing that she was not even their real daughter. They had only heard about a girl with great talent for magic and decided to kill her parents and kidnap her. The two founders say they could burn her, kill her, or do whatever they wanted with that useless monster, making Iblis die of rage. In exchange for Sophia, they agreed to let them go, but Iblis was being sarcastic. She herself sends the two founders flying away with how much hatred she was feeling towards those occultists. The founders complain because Iblis tried to trick them with her words, but she just tells them to shut up and tries to take care of Sophia. She knows Sophia must be in a lot of pain right now, but they would take care of her soon, which ends up making Sophia faint after all the pain and shock. Iblis asks Lloyd if he could find a way to prevent Sophia from going through a death sentence or some kind of trial, and he agrees that he would find a way. The protagonist starts destroying the entire hideout, saying that it would be much simpler to destroy everything because then the king would never find out that Sophia was able to survive. Iblis says that that was a very crude way of solving things, but she would not complain. Later in Lloyd's mansion, Sophia continues to dream about her lying parents, the founders, remembering the horrible words they said to her just before she fainted. Then she wakes up without understanding where she was and realizes that she was sleeping next to Iblis in bed. The protagonist appears at the bedroom door when he realizes that she has woken up and comments that Sophia was able to get rid of the mana poisoning, leaving Sophia without understanding what was going on until Lloyd tells her that she was at his house. When Iblis wakes up, she starts crying and hugs Sophia happily, asking if she is in pain somewhere. Sophia assures her that she is fine. Her stomach ends up rumbling, and Iblis says that she has been asleep for a whole day and should probably be hungry. She leaves to get something for her to eat, returning with a snack for Sophia to eat. Iblis apologizes for the strange appearance but comments that it should taste good. Lloyd comments that eventually Sophia would get used to the way Iblis cooked, embarrassing her because she was still learning how to cook properly for humans. When Sophia eats it, she says it was delicious and makes Iblis very happy. Asking if she meant what she said, Sophia agrees and says that her fake parents always gave her only leftovers to eat. That is why eating something so delicious and hot was rare for her. This makes Iblis start crying with emotion, saying that she could eat as much as she wanted. After Sophia fills her stomach, she thanks her for the meal, which makes Lloyd comment to Sophia that her parents have ended up being sent to the kingdom and would be executed soon, making Iblis angry because he broke the exciting and pleasant atmosphere with that news. Sophia mentions that her real parents were killed by them, and she was just kidnapped. Knowing that Lloyd and Iblis now wanted to be her new parents, she asks why and if they intended to use her as a weapon. Iblis denies it and says that although it is hard to put into words, children should always be protected by adults and not stolen or used, needing to be protected until they become independent. At least that is what Iblis thought was right. Instead of following her emotional line, the protagonist replies that he only adopted her because Iblis asked him to, which makes his wife angry because he always manages to totally destroy the mood. Iblis says that he must have had other reasons for wanting to adopt Sophia too. Thinking back, he remembers when Sophia tried to risk her life and thought that she was too much like him. That is why he wanted to save her, and that is probably all that changed his mind. Sophia says that the two of them would still end up being shot by people just like her parents were. She was afraid that the two of them would be killed because of her. Lloyd and Iblis assure her that this would never happen because they were literally the most powerful couple of all. Therefore, no one could kill them. Hearing this makes Sophia cry, and she asks if it was really all right for her to continue living with them. Iblis agrees because now they would be her new father and mother, which makes the protagonist have memories of his past. At that time, he and his brother cried at the death of their parents, but Lloyd tried to console his younger brother. Remembering this makes the protagonist hug Sophia, which impresses Iblis because he suddenly started acting super sensitive and considerate, which was totally strange. She asks if he has eaten something spoiled and if she has accidentally poisoned his food. But Lloyd just replies that it was because he thought it would be better for Sophia. After all, she was crying a lot to the point of sobbing. Despite this, Iblis insisted that Sophia cry as much as she wanted, and Lloyd agreed because neither of them intended to complain about it. After all, this was her new home now, and so a new family life for three was about to begin. Last night, Sophie came home with Eve and Leod, and she was invited home as she had no place else to go. Coming home, Eve lets her pick any room she wants as there are a lot of them, and Eve wants Sophie to have the best experience staying here. Leod tells her she can pick any of them as all of them are pretty fine for her. She picks one room and she goes to sleep. She is sleeping peacefully, but in the middle of the night, she wakes up and for some reason, she cannot go back to sleep. She tries her best to fall asleep, but it is not happening for her. And now she is going to say that this was destiny that she woke up at this hour of the night. She looks around and sees that the room she picked is quite spacious, and all of this space is not something Sophie is used to. She tries sleeping once again, but nothing. This room is pretty big for her. She is grateful that Eve and Leod let her stay here with them, as she would have been sleeping outside if it had not been for them. They let her stay here and she wants to repay them somehow. The next morning, Eve got up early and went out to hunt some birds for breakfast. After some time, she finally managed to catch one, and now she is planning on coming back home and making breakfast. She comes back and she knows that she has to make breakfast as soon as she can, as she wants Sophie to have the best morning of her life where she gets her breakfast right when she wakes up. Eve knows that she is not that good with the cooking, but she will give her best this time. She is going to try to make sure that nothing is burnt and that every salt level is in the right amount. She wants to take a second opinion on her breakfast and wants Leod to come out and taste it so she knows how good it is. She goes to wake him up and he is awake. But Sophie is right by him in his bed, and seeing this surprises her. She asks Leod if he knows anything about this, and he does not. He was sleeping, and when he woke up, he found her here right by him. Sophie wakes up and says good morning. She looks pretty embarrassed seeing how Eve is looking at her. Upon asking, she tries to make sense of her words. She says something like the room was too big, and she did not feel right sleeping there and everything. Leod knows what she is trying to tell them, and it is that she is scared to sleep alone. That is the reason she got up in the middle of the night and came to his bed, so she is not alone anymore. Hearing this makes Eve very happy and cuddly with Sophie. She tells her that the next time she feels like this, she can come to her room as well, as she is warmer and cuddlier than Leod, and she would love that. Yeah, she does not want those things from you, you idiot. There is a guy in the equation and you cannot take it out. Eve thinks Sophie is very cute and tells her that they are her papa and mama, and she can come to her mama's room whenever she wants. Sophie likes her gesture and thanks her for this. Sophie leaves saying that she is going to wash her face and get fresh for the morning, but she doesn't call her mama or Leod papa. She leaves and Eve tells Leod that she is still finding it difficult to call them papa or mama. Leod thinks something is wrong here, but he cannot just quite put a finger on what it is. Eve thinks that giving it some time is probably the best thing they can do right now, and when she talks about time, she remembers that she had put meat to cook, and coming out, she sees that it is burnt. So the morning breakfast is a burnt steak for Leod and Sophie. They both eat this smoking burnt meat and Leod eats it quietly. Eve feels bad for letting them eat this, and the regret is getting to her. She wants to go and get something from the market for them to eat, as this is not acceptable, but Sophie stops her. She tells her that she does not have to do that, as she can cook as well, and wants to make breakfast for today. Eve lets her cook, and after some time, Sophie presents them the best looking breakfast they can imagine. It looks quite delicious, and Eve cannot help but feel awe looking at this nice plate of meat. The meat is perfectly tender, and the texture has not changed at all. Leod loves the taste of it and compliments Sophie's cooking. Tasting the meat and noticing how good it is makes Eve regret her cooking skills more. She gets down on her knees and cannot help but feel bad for Leod about how kind of wife he has who cannot even cook. Leah tells her to get up and lets her know that her cooking for him alone is something that makes the food taste more delicious, and he is happy with that. And ladies and gentlemen, you only see these husbands in movies or TV shows also. Hearing this makes Eve very happy, and she turns to Sophie and tells her that she has to teach her how to cook. Sophie freaks out, telling her that she only knows how to chop and grill and nothing else, but Eve is not hearing it. She wants her to teach anything she can, as it will be so much better than learning nothing. Sophie puts on a smile and tells Eve that then they have to cook together, and for that, Eve is going to help Sophie with the cooking. This makes Eve very happy, and she wants to get on with the lunch right away. She wants to start making lunch now, as this is very exciting for her. Sophie agrees, and Leod also is willing to lend her a hand in the cooking. Seeing Eve and Leod together like this and thinking that they are going to cook together reminds Sophie of her real parents. She starts tearing up, but this does not go on for long as Leod accidentally breaks the shelf. He not knowingly used more power than he needed to, and now the shelf has to be fixed. After the day of cooking and everything good, Eve and Sophie take a bath together, and coming out, they both feel very refreshed. Eve tells Sophie that she has to sleep with her in her room today, as it is going to be very warm and good for her. Sophie agrees, and they come out to tell Leod that they are about to go to sleep when they see that Leod is still fixing the shelf he broke. Sophie comes up and tells Leod that she is going to be sleeping with Mama in her room, and hearing this shocks Eve. She was waiting for her to call her Mama, and how that happened. It is so much better than she thought it would be. It feels very great to hear her call her Mama, and Leod also feels a little good. He wishes Sophie good night, and both of them go to sleep. Eve starts cuddling with Sophie right in front of Leod, as she cannot control herself. She thinks she has the cutest daughter in the world, but Leod tells her that she can do this in the room as they are heading there anyway. We see a huge splash of spiraling water, and we see that Leod is in the water, doing something. Yeah, all these chapters start very weird, but they make total sense in the end. Our Eve is cheering Leod through all of it, and Sophie is there just wondering how the hell it got to this all of a sudden. We see that it is morning, and Eve gets up and comes out in the hall. She takes a look at the sky and notices that there are no clouds today, and the sun is clear as day today. Leod and Eve know what this means, and Leod suggests to Eve that they should take advantage of the clear sky and do that thing. Eve agrees with Leod, but Sophie is not aware of what is that thing. She asks about it, and Eve explains that they are going to do cleaning today, and it is called the Great Cleaning Day. They call it this, and they do this very thoroughly, and they are waiting for the clear sky today to do it. They have not done it for quite some time, and now Sophie is also here, so Eve wants to do the cleaning more thoroughly than usual today. Leod gets ready and has to do some things before they clean the house. The house is quite big, and there are a lot of things they have to gather before doing that. Leod gets ready and begins gathering all the laundry and breakables. He tells Eve that he has to gather these things, and after that, they would start the cleaning process. Sophie is out of the loop, and she has no idea what are the breakables. I guess things that can break. Leod collects all the things in a few minutes, and Sophie is surprised at how quickly he collected all the things. He signals Eve that things have been collected, and now she can begin the cleaning process. They come out of the house, and we see Eve using her powers to get a strong wave of wind inside the house. This surprises Sophie once again, and upon asking about it, Leod explains that their house is quite big, and cleaning rooms one by one is a quite waste of time. So what Eve is doing now is that she is getting the wind inside the house, and it is getting all the dust out of the house. Last time it was Leod who did this, and he almost blew away the house because of his power. Because of this mistake, he was punished, and for the punishment, Eve made him sleep outside in the floating bed. He thought it would be pretty bad, but it was alright, and he tells Sophie that sleeping under the starry sky is quite peaceful and better than he imagined it would be. If I had those powers, I would be sleeping in that bed all day, and with that, the wind part of the cleaning is done, and the house has been cleaned of dust now. Eve has all her hair messed up, and Sophie tells her about it. She shakes her head, and all of it comes back to normal. Now that they are done with this, Leod is up, and for this, they have to go to the river. They plan on going to the river now, and Eve reminds Leod of that thing once again. What is it now, huh? Can't they talk openly? Sophie is just as curious as we are, and she asks about what it is now. Leod tells her that they are going to the river as they have to clean a lot of things with water, and going to the laundry is not good for that. There is some bigger stuff they have to clean, and now we are in the present. Eve is cheering the hell out of her husband, and we see Leod get out of the water with a giant box of laundry in his hands. He was in there washing these things, and now that they are done, Eve wants to take a break so the things can be dried out. As things are drying, Eve and Sophie get in the hot spring. This is one of the hot springs Eve found when she was flying through the sky, and the location was too perfect for her. She loves this hot spring, and Sophie asks her why Papa is not coming into the hot spring. She tells Sophie that Leod wants to have a lot of exercise, and he thought that cleaning and washing things in the river was not enough, so he ran toward the horizon for his exercise. To be this dedicated. There is a little bit of quietness, and Eve looks at Sophie and asks her something quite serious. She asks her if she is having fun with them. Sophie does not understand the question, but Eve tells her that she and Leod are not normal people, and the way they do things is not normal. She knows that Sophie is not used to these things, and for that reason, she asks her if she is fine with them, and she finds them some fun or not. Sophie starts thinking about it, but before she answers it, Eve changes the subject as it was quite painful for her to sit through this silence. She starts saying that she wants this kind of hot spring in her house is coming all the way here, for this is too much. Sophie understands that she does not want to talk about it and drops the subject. After all the cleaning and washing, Leod is with Sophie and he is taking her on a ride on the dragon through the sky. He wants her to feel the air and feel how good it is to fly through the sky like this. They are flying when she points toward the sky and tells Leod that the sky is so stirry. Leod again tells her that it is the same as when he was punished to sleep outside. Yeah, he wants us to know so badly that he got punished. Hearing this makes Sophie wonder if she ever would get punished the way Papa got punished. She thinks about it and she remembers what Eve asked her that time. She thinks to herself that if she messes up and gets punished, then she is happy with the way she is living here. She is more than happy because this is what normal families do. She doesn't want anything more from these people as she has enough. She tells Leod that she is happy and she wants this family to be her normal family. She is having so much fun with them, and hearing this, Leod tells her that he is going to have so much fun together with her tomorrow, and tomorrow they are going to fly up from the clouds. The air is quite a thing there, and it is going to be some experience for her. Sophie is excited for tomorrow, and the family is quite happy for now. In another scene, we see two people hiking, and one gets a little hurt while hiking. We see that it is the princess, and she is looking for something. We get to know that her dad is king among kings, and she is the daughter of the demon king, and she would not back down from this. Eve and Leod are outside when Sophie comes out a little worried. Seeing her face freaks out Eve, and she asks if something is wrong. Sophie tells her that the button of the clothes she is wearing is falling off, and this happens because she got stuck somewhere. Eve takes a breather and assures Sophie that this is nothing to be worried about, as she can fix this in no time. All she has to do is use some needle and thread, and it will be back as new. After some time, we see some remains of what we call clothes. Eve did not know how to use thread and needles, and she tore the cloth several times. She apologizes cryingly about it and tells everyone that they are going to go out and buy some clothes. They go to the Ian town, and Sophie is very excited about coming here. Eve realizes that this is their first time coming here with Sophie, and now she is excited as well. They are walking when Leod asks Sophie if she can make clothes out of mana like Eve can or not. Eve wants him to shut up, as this will kill out her hype about the town. She tells Leod that she can make water and things from her magic, but she cannot make anything that resembles clothing. Eve takes some meat skewers from the shop and explains to Sophie how this mana creation works. She tells her that making clothes out of mana is not that easy to learn, and it can take almost a lifetime to learn that. She is very fortunate that she learned it quite easily and very fast. Eve knows she can make clothes pretty easily, but there are things that she cannot make, like this meat skewer. Leod cannot believe that she is crying over this meat skewer. Eve adds further that the more durable and complex the thing is, the more difficult it is to make it. She tells Sophie that she can make clothes just by looking at them now that she is this mastered at it. She also lets her know that if the creator is far away from the creation, it will change back and return as mana. Moreover, she knows that Sophie would not want anything like that on her body that can get off just like that. Eve offers Leod that she can make that kind of clothes for him as well if he wants. Leod would not refuse this thing and tells her that she can if she wants to do it. But Sophie is getting very weird imaginations in her head about it, and how Eve wants to see her husband out of clothes using her mana-created ones. Anyways, when they go to the clothes store and go in, they see that there are a lot of clothes that are pretty and cheap. The owner of the shop greets them in, and she notices how beautiful and model-like this family is. She takes a look at the couple, and the boy and the girl are totally model types for her, and their daughter is too cute for her. She wants to dress this little girl up so badly, so she runs toward them and asks them if they are here to get some clothes for this little cute girl. Eve tells her that they are, and this excites the owner. She suggests them some dresses, and Eve tells Sophie to try them on. She tries it and it blows Eve and the owner away. She looks too cute to them and they cannot control themselves. She tries another one and it makes them fly to the sky seeing how cute she looks. She tells us that she feels very comfortable in this dress and she wants Papa's opinion on it. He thinks it looks great and she can move quite easily as this is going to come in handy while fighting. She tries another one and Leo thinks the dress is good, but if she can tear off the ornament above the chest and throw it at an enemy, it can make a good opening for them. This guy is constantly playing Tekken in his head. This makes Sophie a little frustrated and Eve tells her to try one more, but she refuses. She is very tired, and seeing that she is tired, Eve wants to select the dresses she tried while Sophie wants to go outside and walk. Sophie and Leo go outside and they are walking when he asks Sophie why she looks upset. He looks around and sees that there are a lot of people around and he turns back to find that Sophie is gone. We see that she got separated from all the pushing and she is lost. She calls for Papa, but he is not around. She tries to find the clothes shop and she cannot do that either. Freaking out, she tries looking around and Layad finds her. He comes to her and tells her that walking with a gap is dangerous here, so she should walk closely to him. He holds her hand and tells her that she has to hold his hand, and this way they would not be separated. He tells her that he will protect her no matter what. As long as he is here, he will look out for her, and if she has a dress on in which she finds it hard to move, he will make sure that she is okay, and Eve will too. This makes Sophie very happy, and Layad asks about earlier and why she was pretty upset before. He feels like if she has cavities in her teeth, they can go to a dentist if she wants, but Sophie is fine. Eve comes out and she freaks out seeing that they both are holding hands. She feels like they cannot be forgiven and they have to stop this right now, but Layad tells her that they got separated and this is the reason they are holding hands. Anyway, Layad notices a lot of boxes behind Eve and asks about it. She tells him that she was finding it difficult to choose the dress, so she bought all of them, and now he has to pay up. He does, but Eve is still in the hands. She will not forgive them like this, but Sophie grabs her hand as well and asks her if she can forgive them now if they hold hands together. This melts her and she is fine. She forgives them and they go for dinner at a good restaurant. After the feast, they come out and Sophie and Eve are full. They love the food there, but still, Layad wanted to hurry as it was getting dark. He is not looking forward as he says this and bumps into someone. Eve and Sophie ask if they are okay and he is fine. He asks the person he bumped into if she is okay or not, but he finds something interesting. We see that it is Alice and she is heading somewhere. Layad notices her ear and sees that she is a demon or something. He cannot mistake these ears as they got burned into his memory from the fight he had with the Demon King. He asks her if she is a demon or not. Alice is out in the open and Layad now can see that she is in fact a demon. He asks her again and she tells him that she is a demon. He thinks to himself about why a demon is here in a human town. When he fought the Demon King, he made sure that humans and demons do not coexist again, and yet again, this is happening. Alice tells Layad that she is a demon and she has to get out of there right away. She cannot take any chances as maybe interacting with humans is going to start a commotion of some sort here. She has to leave, and so she gets up and starts running away. Eve yells that she is running away, but not for long. Alice trips and falls again. Sophie and Eve feel bad for her as she has fallen twice now. Eve goes and asks if she is okay. She gives her a hand to get up, and as she gets up, it hits her and she tells Eve that she does not need human help. Saying this, she tries to get out of her hand, but she cannot. Eve is too strong for some reason and Alice freaks out about why she cannot get off from her hand. Eve does not notice it at first and tells her that she did not notice as she is very weak. Saying this, Eve lets go of her hand and she falls again. Alice screams that she does not have to leave her hand like this in a second. She is helping her again get up when Layad notices some kind of sparks happening behind him. He sees it and it is someone coming out of an illuminated portal. It is Mizuki and she comes out, yelling that Alice has to get away now. She notices that Alice is with a human and she tells them that they have to get away right now or they are going to face serious consequences. She says this and someone shows up who she was trying to run away. This is bad for Mizuki and this is what she was afraid of. This guy has a snake tail and his name is Fane. He notices Alice and tells her that she cannot run away for longer and one day, she has to give up on this running. These humans are not something she can take cover behind, and he laughs at the fact that she tried hiding in a human town of all the places. Alice lets him know that she is not scared of him and tells her that he is nothing but a betraying servant. Hearing the word servant pisses off Fane, and he tells her that she cannot say these words to her husband. This shocks Iliad and others. He tells her that she is nothing like her father. She is trying her hardest to become like him, but she is nothing close to it. She cannot use her mana properly, and all he can do is protect his wife Alice from the bad people of the multiverse. Also, she has the memento of her father with her, which he could not use when he was alive. He is dead, and he can no longer save her. Fane bullies her and tells her that she is no match for him, and she can only do one thing, and that is to submit herself to him so he can protect her. Mizuki, pissed off, tells him that he is wrong and he will never get her, but Fane does not care about her. Hearing all of this is making Eve mad, and she interrupts Fane, saying that she has no idea what is going on and what the details are, but she knows that bullying is bad and she cannot allow it. Fane takes a look at her and in frustration tells his people to take her out. They go and charge at her, but she and Sophie easily manage to take them out. This surprises Fane, Alice, and Mizuki. Eve starts telling him more, and Liev comes in, saying that he has no idea what is going on between the demons, but he knows that they are getting involved, and if they are getting involved, Fane has to prepare for what is coming for him. This scares Fane off, and he leaves, saying that he will be back for these humans as well. Seeing that Iliad scared him off, Alice notices that these are not ordinary humans, but some powerful ones. Mizuki and Alika are registering what just happened when Alice gets an idea. She comes up to them and tells them that she has decided something. She has decided that she is giving them the honor to protect her at all costs. The family is somewhat confused about it, and Mizuki is as well. We are right where we left off, and Alice tells the Liev family that they are being bestowed to be the protection for Alice. But she takes a look and the family is about to leave them. Liev does not care about her and tells his family that they have to leave now. Alice yells and tells them to stop right now. She tells them that they are fortunate enough to be bestowed this task, but they are ignorant enough to leave without accepting it. She starts bragging how she is the most important person in the demon world, and she is on the run from Fane. They have to protect her or something bad will happen. Eve comes up to her and sees how cute and cuddle-worthy she is, but she is requesting things like this. She grabs her face and starts pulling it, thinking she is a doll to play with. She asks her how the hell is she requesting things in a bossy way with this cute and doll-like face. Seeing how she is grabbing and pulling Alice's face, Mizuki is freaking out and tries telling Eve that she cannot touch her so casually, but Eve does not care. Alice tells her that she is a member of a distinguished family and they have to protect her at all costs. Eve does not care about that either and turns to ask Iliad something. She wonders how the hell this demon girl is asking a human for help when humans and demons are considered enemies. Iliad tells her that they are not enemies anymore, as the battle between demons and humans has been finished for a while now. They are neither friends and we're enemies now. Seeing how this is, Eve turns to Alice and tells her that they can accept her offer if she asks them properly. Iliad agrees with her and he doesn't mind helping her. He tells her that she said that she is from a distinguished family, and if she is, she sure knows a proper way to request help. Alice does, and she tells the Liev family that she is in danger. She is the daughter of an emperor, and after his death, his subordinate is after his legacy, and she is the one protecting it. He is after her because he wants to destroy any evidence of his rule, and when he is successful in that, he would take over the demon realm without anyone to stop him. Iliad again is hearing and thinks this is not interesting anymore and wants to leave, but Alice tells him to stop. Mizuki is her ally in this only, and is the person serving her right now. Eve tells Alice that her husband is a little ignorant and they accept her offer. Hearing that this guy is her husband shocks both of them. Seeing them getting shocked, Eve explains that she is the wife of the family. Evelyn and Sophie tell them that she is the daughter magician of the family. Eve also adds that she is the Emperor Dragon and they are going to fly her now. They fly toward the house back, and Alice is scared out of her mind because of the speed. Reaching home, Eve sees that Alice is barely moving and she looks pretty flushed. Mizuki tells her that it is because of the speed they got back in and that she will be fine in a minute. Eve tells Iliad to pick her up, and so he does. He comes up to her and he touches the box she is carrying behind her back. Mizuki yells at him to not touch that box and something happens. We see something happening to Iliad and it looks like his mana is being absorbed by the box itself. Something about this is pretty weird and Alice notices this. She gets up in a hurry and screams at Iliad, telling him never to touch this box again. She realizes that she is rude here and she apologizes for her tone. But she really wants him to never touch it again, as this is something close to her. Layod understands and tells her that he will be careful next time. But the thing that surprises Mizuki is that Layod is fine. She asks him if he is injured or feels different, but he is fine. He tells her that he is okay and nothing happened to him, but Mizuki finds it very hard to believe. She cannot believe that he touched the box and still is fine. We get to know that touching that box is very dangerous, as it absorbs your mana entirely and in some cases, kills you. She knows this guy Layod is something else, as he is the husband of an emperor dragon and the father of the strongest magician. Eve comes out and tells them that their bath is ready and they can go in now. Give them a bath. They take a bath after every little thing. Yeah, got up from a good sleep? Let's take a bath. Do not feel well? Take a bath. Your stomach hurts? Yeah, a bath. Mizuki and Alice go in the bath and Mizuki washes Alice's back. After cleaning it, she turns and sees that Mizuki has wounds all over her body. They have not taken a good bath in so long, and this is so great for them, but Alice cannot help but see how bad those wounds are. Mizuki tells her that she will be powerful the next time they will fight Fane, but this is not what Alice is saying. She is worried about her and wants her to protect herself first. But Mizuki would not do that, as her main goal is to protect Alice first. She also knows that if it weren't for the Layod family, they would have been killed by now. Mizuki asks Alice the same thing that Eve asked Layod. She asks her if taking help from humans is okay or not. Alice tells her that there was a fight between humans and demons long ago and her father, the king, was killed in it. She regrets that she was not able to defend him and it was her fault that he died. She thinks to herself that if only she was stronger like her dad, she would not have the need to run and she could just defend herself. That day, they were not able to see the face of the hero who killed the demon king, but they knew the power they sensed. It was enormous and anyone could have been scared to fight that hero. Alice is helpless and she wishes that there was something she could have done to protect her father. Mizuki looks at Alice and sees her crying. Seeing her in this miserable state makes her feel bad and she clings to Alice, promising that she will be useful the next time. Alice tells her again that it is not her fault. Coming out of the bath, Mizuki tells Alice that she is staying in her room to protect her and she cannot say no. Alice allows her and she goes to bed. She has the memento box with her and lying in the bed, she tells her father that she knows she is not as strong as him and she cannot defend herself or Mizuki, but she will surely make sure that she restores her family to the way it was before. She will do this because she is the daughter of the Demon King and it is the highest title to have. The next morning, we see that Mizuki is very sick and she can barely move. Seeing her condition makes Sophie and Eve feel bad. Her condition can only be better if there are certain medicinal herbs, and they have to find the exact ones as only they can help this sickness. So Alice and Layod decide to go and find those medicinal herbs, and they are going to be back soon. Mizuki wakes up and sees Eve and Sophie by her side. She tries getting up, saying that she cannot be sick right now as Alice needs her. But Eve assures her that she can rest and she has to if she wants to be better quickly. Mizuki asks about Alice and Eve tells her that she and Leo went to get the medicinal herbs for her and they should be back a little while after. Mizuki freaks out saying that they cannot leave as it is very dangerous. Eve knows she is talking about that Fane guy, but she assures Mizuki that they will be fine. Layod is with Alice and as long as he is with her, they are going to be fine no matter who they are up against. Mizuki tells her that she is a little worried about Fane, but that is not all. She is worried about Alice's appeal. Eve does not quite understand what she meant by this, so she asks her again. She tells Eve that Alice's appeal is very strong and she will have her husband around her little finger in no time. Eve is pretty sure that this is not going to happen as she knows Layod and how he is about these things. He is the kind of guy who does not even lay a hand on her. How can he do that? We see in the next scene that Layod is up against Alice, who is by the wall. Well, this was a surprise. Mizuki was right, I guess. We see that the scene had a wrong angle. The angle gets corrected and we see that they are climbing the mountain like this. Alice tells Layod to not let her go as they are going to fall if he does. He tells her to hold on to her strongly. They got up and went up. They saw and did not see any of the herbs they wanted. Alice is tired as hell and Layod tells her that she can go home if she wants, but she cannot. She knows what the herbs are like and only she can pick them apart. Layod tells her that they have been looking for the herbs for quite some time and they did not even find one. They should just pick and tear the mountain and take it back with them so they can get everything they can. But Alice tells him to shut up as she does not want him tearing apart the environment around here. She and Layod goes a little further and looking around for some time more. They still have none of the herbs. Layod takes a look and it is getting darker. He thinks they should get home by now and come back tomorrow, but Alice wants to stay and look for the herbs. She wants to find them now as Mizuki has to get better as quickly as she can. Leod wants her to take a look around and notice how cold it is getting. They would need to wrap themselves together to keep each other warm. This thought disgusts Alice, and now thinking that it would, Leod wants her to come back home with him. He grabs her by the arm, but Alice lets go of her arm and tells Leod to not tell a demon what to do. He is a human and a demon is not ordered around like that. Saying this, she leaves, and while leaving, she quickly realizes that she made a mistake. The way she behaved was wrong, as Leod is the one who saved her and was helping her find those herbs. She wants to apologize, but she is scared that she might not get forgiven by him. This reminds her of what happened in the past. When she was little once, she hit Mizuki and she ran to Alice's father, the Duke Demon King. She cried and told him that his daughter hit her, and Duke asked Alice if she was telling the truth. Mizuki's mother tried telling Duke that he could forgive Alice as their daughter was just messing with her, but Duke stopped her, saying that he wanted to hear what really happened first. Alice comes up to him and tells him in the ear what happened. She tells him that she hit her and she wanted to apologize, but she is scared that she might not get forgiven by her, so she did not. Hearing this, Duke tells Alice that she was on the right track, but she got stopped in the middle of it. She does not have to care if she gets forgiven or not. She has to apologize first, no matter what. She has to apologize because she is the one who made a mistake, and he tells him that she might get hit back, and even if she does, she would be in the right. He also tells her that if a fight broke out, he would never let her get hurt because he is always here for her. This instance came to Alice's mind, and she remembers what her father told her, that you have to apologize properly first and see what happens after that. She turned around and she was walking without seeing where she was going. She was at the edge of the cliff, and she tripped on the edge and started to fall. She tries grabbing something, but nothing comes close to her hand. She falls, and as she does, she thinks to herself that she might be dead here. This is her last time alive, and as she is thinking this, Leod comes out of nowhere and saves her. Holding her, he tells her to hold on to him tightly. Saying this, he looks down, and Alice notices that they are still falling. She asks him how the hell he is going to save themselves when they are falling. He looks at her all calm and tells her that they are safe, and he will always protect her no matter what. They land pretty well, and they are fine. Landing, the way Leod told her that he is going to protect her no matter what reminded her of her father and walking with Alice on his back. She apologizes for before and tells him that she knows she has been rude to him, and she has no right asking him to protect her anymore. But she wants him to hide Mizuki in his house until she is cured, and don't kick her out as well. Leod tells her very calmly that the humans and demons had a fight long ago and the humans won. It is very normal that demons would have a grudge for that, and they would take out their anger on humans like that. Saying this, he assures Alice that he is not going to kick her out or Mizuki, and they both will be staying at the home as long as they want. They have promised to protect them at all costs, and they are going to do just that. Furthermore, for the cure, they should be fine as long as they have this. Saying this, Leod takes out a flower-type herb and shows Alice this. She freaks out seeing that this is the exact thing they were looking for. She asks about how he found it, and he tells her that she had this in her hands when they were falling. She remembers that there was something that she tried grabbing onto, and that was this herb. They are successful in their mission, and they will go home now to cure Mizuki. They reach home and seem both wet and close like this freaks out Mizuki. She thinks they had something going on while they were out, but she is just not in her senses. After getting the medicinal herb they need, Mizuki uses it, and the next morning she is feeling a lot better. Alice wants to see if she really is okay now. She grabs Mizuki by the head and puts her forehead with hers to see the temperature. She can feel it, and the temperature is quite lower than before. Well, that is one way of checking temperature. Now that Mizuki has recovered, Eve wants to celebrate her recovery, and for that they are going to a forest for a picnic. Sophie is curious, and she wants to know what they will be doing there. They will be having a picnic and doing different things there. Eve has a good forest in mind, and all of them follow her there. They reach the forest, and Eve tells them that this is a peaceful forest that they can picnic in. We take a look, and it is not so peaceful by the looks of it, and it is some type of survival forest we see in the movies. The girls are a little scared about this, but Leod is curious about food. He wants to know what they are going to do about the food as they did not bring any with them. Eve tells them that they are going to procure it as they go on the spot. This is exactly the survival forest thing. They should have contacted Bear Grylls before coming here. They go in, and Mizuki is ready about this. She tells Alice that she knows a thing or two about survival, and she will make the best ingredients available to her. Alice is quite happy about this, and they start looking around for different things. Sophie is also helping them look for these things, and they take their time and find different things in the forest. Eve and Leod are pretty good at this, and they have found things for themselves very fast. They are enjoying themselves while these girls are looking for food. Finding it, Mizuki has collected a lot of things, and Sophie and Alice take a bite of these fruit-type things. Sophie loves hers and Alice hers. They exchange the fruits and then take another bite. Sophie tells Alice that the fruit she picked is delicious, calling her big sister. This hits her like a shot of cuteness right in her face. She cannot handle this much cuteness from this cute girl. This makes her feel like she has a little sister, and she remembers that one time she asked her father for a sister, and that was a pretty big thing for her. Out of nowhere, Mizuki takes Alice's attention and kneels in front of her, apologizing for failing her as a servant. This is very random for Alice, and she asks what is she talking about. She has no idea what Mizuki is talking about, but she knows that she needs a little patting on the head. Eve asks everyone if they have eaten or not, and they have. Now she wants to take them to a different place and show them something. She takes them to a river, and this place is quite different. This place is hot and cold at the same time, and Leod is also here for the first time. Alice and Mizuki have never seen a place like this, and Leod can sense that the mana is very dense here for some reason. Mizuki turns to look at Alice, and she is frozen. She freaks out, asking for help as they have to warm her up. Leod notices the wind is changing, and it is getting very hot. Mizuki looks at Alice now, and she is melted. This change of weather is very unique, and they have never felt this thing before. Eve is pretty excited to show everyone this place. She tells them that this place has wind therapy, and it is very effective, but Alice disagrees. They are feeling very hot, and Mizuki is sweating like crazy. They want to take a bath now, and for that, Alice runs toward the river. Eve stops her at the shore and tells her that there is a giant fish inside the river that can eat humans and bears together. But as she is saying this and telling Alice to come back, the fish jumps out on Alice and eats her alive. Mizuki and Leod run to help her, and they kick the fish right in the belly. This makes the fish spit out Alice in an instant, and she is alive and well. She is fine, but she stinks and is all slimy. Mizuki catches her in time and puts her on the ground to rest. Eve is mad at the giant fish and is going to cook her for dinner as punishment. Saying this, the fish jumps back in the water, and Eve does not stop there. She can evaporate all of this river without much effort and starts making a ball of fire. Sophie tries telling her to stop, but she does not listen and launches the fireball at the river. We know that the fire coming in contact with the water is highly dangerous, as it can cause serious huge explosions. Yeah, we're getting chemistry lessons now. That exact thing happens, and a huge explosion happens. The fish is entirely cooked, and Eve and Leod are pretty happy about this. Alice is shocked seeing how Eve did not care at all about the environment and blew up a huge river just like that. Mizuki shares that these people are a mess, but they are fun. Alice cannot deny that, and she knows that with these people, she has very little time to be sad about her past and the coming future. Eve is pretty happy with the way the fish was entirely cooked, and Leod knows that she is going to be using this method at home also, but Alice does not allow any explosions at home. The next morning, Leod comes into the kitchen and sees Eve and Sophie cooking. Sophie is teaching Eve how to cook, and it is going to be very interesting what she does here. Sophie tells Eve to just blow very lightly, and Eve tries her best to do just that, but it does not work. She blows very hard, and the dish is ruined now. Leod asks about Alice, and if she is still sleeping. She is, and Eve tells him that she must be very exhausted from all the journey she has been on for quite some time. Eve wonders if Alice likes her meat fried or grilled, but Leod knows that she would be pretty fed up from all the burnt meat. We see Alice sleeping, and she is hugging the memento box as she sleeps. She is pretty in deep sleep, and she is having a dream. In it, she is little again, and she goes to her father when he comes back. He asks her if she has been a good kid or not, and she has. Alice asks her father if he has been a good kid or not, but he has a different answer for this. The internet has ruined this thing for me so badly. He tells her that he does not think that he is a good kid, and as he says this, Alice wakes up from the dream. She remembers that the dream she just had was from when her father was still alive. Mizuki is there waiting for her to wake up, and she says good morning. She lets Alice know that Eve is the one cooking today, and they must be waiting for them, so they must go now. They go in the kitchen, and again, Eve has cooked or burnt the meat and has presented it to the guests. They eat it like this, and Leod shares that this is already better than before. and he does not want Eve to worry about the burnt meat as he will eat all of it. A husband's resolve. After that, Sophie cooks them a good dish and everyone has breakfast. Eating it, Mizuki asks Layod if he can give her a favor. He wants to hear about it first. She tells him that she wants him to train her to be strong like him. She wants to train and get stronger like him so she can protect Alice all the time without any worry. Layod agrees, but he wants her to know that he is an artificial being and there is no use in her training as she cannot be like him ever. Eve stops Layod from talking more and whispers in his ear that the fact that he is an artificial being made to kill the Demon King is something he cannot say out loud to these demons like this. He has to hide that fact as it could be pretty bad. They cannot know that he is the person who killed their king as it can cause a huge fight to break out in the worst case scenario. He has to not talk about this matter at all costs, as this is a very sensitive topic to discuss. Mizuki and Alice are pretty confused by the way they are talking now. They were pretty shocked to hear that Layod is an artificial being, and Alice thinks that they just randomly started flirting in front of them. Eve tells him that he has to mix in some lies about this and steer away the conversation from this topic. He thinks about it but continues talking about it like before. Eve cannot believe that he cannot just lie like a normal person. He tells Alice and Mizuki that he was a test subject who volunteered for this experiment. After the experiment, they put an ornament in his chest that allowed him to get as much mana as he needed. An infinite amount of mana was at his disposal, and this allowed him to win many great fights. Mizuki knows this is not possible as there is something called acute mana poisoning, and it is when the body gets more mana than it can absorb. Layod knows about this and tells Mizuki that there were a lot of others who were in the experiment too, but they all died. He was the one who successfully broke the limit, and he was the only one to be alive and well. Mizuki feels like this is very bad, and he should have said something, but Layod knows he could not as he was a volunteer. Layod tells them that there is a lot of cruelty happening in the world already. It would be a street corner or a lab site or a war. Hearing the word war hits Alice, and she remembers what her father told her about the war. We pick the dream where Alice woke up and we see what happened afterwards. Duke tells Alice that he cannot be a good kid like her as there are a lot of demons in the demon race that are prideful and powerful and want to show their powers, but he is the one who has to show all of them that he is the strongest of them all. He was a bad kid for some time and he did this so there was peace in the demon realm and he was successful. He managed to become the king of the demon realm and this allowed him to do anything he wanted. He tells her that but there are still humans. There is a war going on between humans and demons, and with the power of unity, he would be able to defeat the humans, and with that, there would be peace in the demon race forever. Alice does not understand anything and Duke notices this. He tells her that he promises to be a good kid in the future for Alice. He would make sure that he would become a good kid when she grew up to be strong like him. We see Alice thinking about this and she wonders if the war between humans and demons was something that Layod was involved in. He was a test subject and was made to have an infinite amount of mana. It could not have been for something little, but for something like a war. Layod notices that Alice is thinking something, and it could not be something good for them, so he changes the subject and gets up. Getting up, he tells Mizuki that she cannot just get stronger by talking. She has to train, and for that, he is going to join her and train her. Mizuki is hyped up about this, but Alice is still wondering about the fact that Layod is an artificial creation, and he had something about war in his mind. They are leaving to train when Eve tells Layod that he has to hold back a lot as she does not want Mizuki to get hurt. And he cannot use the sword. Layod is pretty sure that he would not have a use for the sword as he would be fine without it. They are out and training like crazy. Mizuki is trying her best to hit Layod, but he is untouchable. She is doing everything in her might to land a single blow, and even that is not enough. Alice is sitting alone and trying to see their fight, but it is too fast. She cannot see anything, and she is forced to think about things. She starts to wonder what her father was trying to teach her and do for the demon race. The training is over and Layod thinks they should stop here as it is getting dark. Mizuki agrees as she cannot move a finger. She is on the ground and Layod has the stick toward her like this. This is the exact position Alice saw the hero in when he defeated her father. Why am I worried about Layod? He is the hero, right? He can take care of him and his family. She connects all the dots and knows that there is something pretty familiar about Layod. She connects that this guy has the infinite mana. He volunteered for the experiment and talked about the war between the humanity and demon race. She gets up and gathers courage to ask Layod a question. She goes up to him and asks him if he is the hero. We pick up right where we left off and Alice just got a bit of a hint that Layod here might be the one who killed her father. Maybe he is the one, the hero, and he is the Demon King's enemy. She stops Leod and Mizuki to ask Leod about this. She asks him if he is the hero or not. There is a bit of silence here, but after a hot minute, Leod does not answer her, but Mizuki questions her. She wants Mizuki to be quiet here while she asks Leod once again with a hard tone. He knows there is no use of hiding it now, and he tells her that he is the hero. He is the one who killed the Demon King. This shocks Alice so much, although she already knew that this might be a possibility. She cannot believe that the person who killed her father the way he did is the one who saved her quite a few times already. She takes out her knife and is about to charge at him, but Mizuki stops Alice from doing this. She puts some sense into her, telling her that he is the one who killed the strongest Demon King, and he cannot be defeated here. If they try to fight him here, they will die a dog's death, and it would not be worth it. Alice does not want to let him go like this because he is the one who takes her happiness from her. Leod is just there standing doing nothing, while Alice is finding it hard to keep herself conserved. She wants to take revenge, but Mizuki knows she cannot do it. She is not even close to landing a blow on him, and yet she is trying her best to kill him. She stops Alice from this madness, and Eve and Sophie come out hearing all the noise. They heard someone shouting, and it was Alice. Eve finds out that Alice now knows about Leod, and that he is the culprit who killed her father. Now this is bad, but why the hell is Leod just standing there? He should try and make sense of it all to Alice. Alice knows she has nothing she can do right now, and thinking this, she notices that she has the box that her father gave her. She knows she has not opened it ever, and maybe this is the time she should. Thinking this, she tells Mizuki that she has had this box for so long and yet she has not opened it once. She is going to now, and saying this, Alice opens it up. The box immediately starts absorbing her mama, and she can feel something very familiar. The way mana is getting absorbed is the same as the ability that her father had. The hand of her father was able to absorb the mana of someone he touched. She finds it pretty interesting, and she is going to open it up completely. She tries it, but nothing happens further. It is no use, and she just closes it. She is frustrated seeing that her father refuses to lend her the power he had, and this makes her pretty mad. She starts shedding tears, and she cannot control it. Eve asks Leod, on the other hand, that it is now in the open, and they have to do something about it. She asks him what they are going to do, but Leod does not reply. Instead, he goes toward Alice and Mizuki and looks at them. Alice gets up her head and notices Leod standing right in front of her with a knife in his hand. She is scared and thinks that he is going to kill her too, but something else happens. Leod asks her if she really wants to kill him. She doesn't reply, but her expression says it all. Leod knows her answer, and keeping that in mind, he gives the knife to her. Doing this, he tells her that if she wants to take revenge and kill him, she can do it. Eve loses her mind hearing this. She cannot believe what Leod is saying, and she asks him if he has lost his mind or what. He tells her that Alice is the one whose father he killed, and if she wants to take revenge, her revenge is justified and she can do it. Eve wants him to know that he would be dead forever and would not be alive anymore with his family. Leod knows about everything, and he knows what he is getting into. All he knows is that Alice is right here, and if she wants to kill him for her father, she can, and he would not stop her. Mizuki and Alice are shocked at what Leod is saying, and she, even in complete shock, takes the knife and thinks about it. Eve tries telling him once again that what he is doing is wrong, and he cannot just let her kill him like this. But Leod tells her that she was the one who told her that she would be willing to be in her life. At first, she tried telling him that a dragon would never be under a human, and she looked pretty mad about it, but eventually, she submitted herself to him. She was the one who kept him alive and happy till this moment, and now that he is trying to do something right, she is stopping him. Eve starts crying, knowing that what Leod is saying is true. Leod is ready to die, but Sophie runs and comes in front of him, telling Alice that she cannot kill him. She wants her to know that she loves him, and she cannot take Papa away from him. This reminds Alice of the time when she used to be with her Papa, and how she never wanted him to go away from her, but when he did, it hurt pretty badly. Sophie reminds Alice of her childhood. She is so confused and has no idea what she should do here. She is helpless, and after a little while, Mizuki and Alice decide to leave. They are leaving for good and saying their goodbyes. They leave, and Eve grabs Leod by the shirt and tells him that if Alice tried confronting them ever in the future, he should never do that again. She wants him to understand this and never think about what he just did again. Saying this, they are going inside the mansion when they hear some loud noise. They see, and it is Fane with his two people. He is here to look for Alice, and Eve finds this pretty great. She was furious and she needed to vent, and she had the perfect opportunity. But Leia tells her to stop and take care of Sophie and the mansion while he goes and takes care of this Fane guy. He charges at him, and as he is about to land the punch, he senses something, and what he sees is that it was an illusion. The real Fane with the giant snake is behind him at the mansion. Eve and Sophie are alone and Leia is far away right now. We see that Fane is happy the way it all happened, and he has found Alice and Mizuki on the stroll as well. He is happy that he did not have to work a lot, and he caught these two just walking here. Eve and Sophie are shocked to see them in Fane's grab. Fane says that he did not want to do this, but he has to now. Saying this, he orders the people with him to kill Eve and Sophie, and they are ready. Eve and Sophie are helpless as Leia is nowhere close to them to protect them. She has to defend herself alone and Sophie as well. Now that the battle has begun, poor Lloyd gets circled by a great number of Fane's minions. Even though he wants to finish this as soon as possible and head towards Alice to save her, judging by the numbers, it will take a while. Are we going to ignore the fact that one of those minions actually looks like Natsu from a fairy tale? Plus, a minion immediately pushes a fight with Lloyd, and as he tries to stab Lloyd with his spear, our hero immediately dodges the attack and tries to land a punch. However, that punch never lands because it's all an illusion. None of these minions actually exist. That guy then turns into smoke, but luckily Lloyd's punch lands on the real person's sword and it breaks into pieces. Basically, Fane is trying to confuse and bait Lloyd with his illusion magic. Even right now, he sent an illusion forward while a real minion tried to stab our hero from behind. Now that is what you can call a proper strategy. Even Lloyd gets the idea of what's actually going on, so the guy gets the thought that he can ignore this fight and join Eve. But he fears that the enemy might create an illusion of Sophia and Eve and trick him into their trap. So right now, Lloyd is really confused about what to do, because one wrong decision can lead things quite messy. Thus for now, he decides to stick with the illusions and defeat them first. It low-key worries Lloyd, but all he can do is hope that the girls will protect themselves at least. And talking about the girls, both Eve and Sophia are seen confronting their enemies. Yup, the demon girl and Hellboy strike again. Get it? Because one of his thorns is ripped. Anyways, Eve seems pretty confident in herself. She tells Sophia to back away as she will take care of these two demons. But apparently, Snake Man isn't having it. He believes in equality. Hence, the guy calmly tells Eve to chill out and not be that confident. The guy is more interested in watching a 1-versus-1 battle. So he uses his rock cover formation magic. Basically, he summons a huge wall that separates Eve and Alice along with Demon Girl and Hellboy. The girls low-key get worried because things are starting to look hard from here on, now that they do not have Daddy Lloyd to save them. We then see the Snake Man harassing 16-year-old Alice as he rubs his fingers on her face. The pedo guy tells his mates that he is leaving the rest to them. Yes, Ro is abandoning his people after getting the girl he wanted, because apparently his primary goal was to capture Alice. Thus, the Snake Man says farewell and leaves. It pisses Eve, who is looking at the Snake Man. This offends the demon girl, who is not getting enough attention, so she calls Eve out and tells her to focus on her since she is her opponent today. The girl immediately jumps towards Eve and starts throwing her blades at her. Eve barely manages to dodge her blade by flying in the air. Seeing the damage those blades did to the ground surprises Eve, so the demon girl starts laughing at her for underestimating her. Realizing that Eve is actually a dragon interest demon girl who then tries to pull Eve's tails. The girl basically tells Eve to check her chakrams because they are made of materials that are taken from an almighty dragon. Why am I having a feeling that demon girl is probably going to regret pissing her off? Eve looks at her with a shocked face, but that does not stop the gothic girl from continuing. Demon Girl keeps throwing blades towards Eve while telling her that a long time ago, her ancestors used to live in a certain place. And one day they fought against an almighty dragon and took its scale. So Eve can judge the outcome from that. However, the poor girl is too busy defending herself that she is unable to fire back. And that is not it. She reveals that after taking the scales, they managed to create it with mana. She is talking about the chakrams. Plus, that technique has been passed down from generation to generation. Demon Girl is pretty confident in herself judging by her energy. She mocks Eve and flexes that all of her chakrams have the hardness of that mighty dragon. So basically, she is hard. And today, the Demon Girl looks forward to seeing who is stronger, Eve or that almighty dragon whose skin she is wearing. Technically, she is saying that this battle will continue until one of them dies, so the Demon Girl aims at Eve at point-blank distance and instantly throws her blade to prove that she is more worthy. In case you guys are confused, the blades that Demon Girl is throwing are actually chakrams, so yeah, they have been making blades from dragon scale. This time, instead of dodging the attack, Eve pushes the break mid-air, leaving her melons hanging. Unbelievably, Eve literally catches the blade like it is nothing. It makes Demon Girl feel like a clown who is embarrassed and confused at the same time. Like this whole time, Eve was dodging her attack and running here and there. Eve then starts taking a good look at the chakrams that the Demon Girl kept mentioning. Moreover, Eve starts to feel like she has seen these before. It takes some moments for her to put pressure on her tiny brain, but finally she remembers it. Turns out this scale belongs to none other than Eve herself, who was taken from her when she was a child. However, Eve does not remember the mighty story that the Demon Girl just said about her ancestors, even though Demon Girl made it sound so serious and realistic. So she once again gives her head a push because Demon Girl does have proof of Eve's scale. And when the brain doesn't work, Eve literally starts licking her scale, and within an instant, the memories start to hit in and she remembers the story of this scale. Well, it may not be interesting, but it appears that this is the scale that came off with the skin when she was molting. We even see a photo of her molting, and good lord, I really wish to become her donkey, because this dragon is worth riding. To make things simple, Eve shorts it and tells Demon Girl that basically she threw away her scale after molting, and it was somehow picked by one of Demon Girl's ancestors, who later on dragged it and made a story of fighting and took it away after it. At this moment, Demon Girl feels like her whole life is a lie. At first, she cannot believe what Eve is saying is true, because if it is, then all her ancestors' pride is nothing but lies. She legit used to be proud of her kind and existence, but things won't remain the same from now on. But anyways, Eve is not here to consolate her or prove something to her, because she wishes to end things quickly here and head to Sophia or the Snake Man. Therefore, Eve starts to inhale a great amount of air. It low-key worries the Demon Girl, who is already traumatized. Well, the girl legit exhales a fire tornado and traps Demon Girl inside it. After the attack, we see Demon Girl lying on the ground while being knocked out cold. It low-key disappoints Eve to see this loudmouth getting defeated with just one attack, because apparently Eve held back. She only burned the air and suffocated her a bit while she was trapped inside the tornado. The reason for the kindness is that Eve appreciated the fact that the Demon Girl's ancestor praised her as an almighty dragon. Plus, she is impressed with the effort and creativity her ancestors made in recreating her scale. That is why Eve decides to forgive her and not kill her today. Speaking of fire, Eve starts to get hungry and starts imagining barbecuing ribs. She states that it is easy to not make it burnt, however it is difficult to burn it just right. According to Eve, the path of cooking is quite steep. It takes some moments, but she eventually realizes the state she is in. Thus, Eve immediately gets a hold of herself and realizes that this is not the time to think about that. And so, she heads to check up on Sophia, and speaking of her, let us head back to the moment when the girls were separated and Sophia was left all alone. The poor girl starts to get worried after the enemy in front of her is legit a muscular and big man. Moreover, Hellboy literally starts laughing as he is looking at Sophia. The guy mocks the girl for being a small piece of meat that does not look like it would even be worth crushing. He finds this as an easy and quick fight to get over with it, leaving the genius magician confused and scared.